Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeri Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Chaitanyam Sarvagam Sarvam Sarvabhuta Guhashayam Yat Sarva Vishayatitam Tasmai Sarva Vide Namaha. Dharma Dharma Phalai Yoga Ishto Drushto Yathatmanaha Shastrat Brahmatmapyasya Moksho Jnanat Tatheshyatam Yamaha Rajanadhyastaha Vasana Swapnadarshibhi Anubhuyanta eveha Tatonyah kevalo drushi. That just as there is pramanam to establish the sambandha or connection of Atma with karma, because that is the subject matter of karma kanda, where you are enjoined to perform various duties or perform karma, actions, duties, rituals rather with desire. So if that is pramanam, dharma dharma phalaihi yoga ishtaha, ishtaha desirable by you, that Atma should have yoga or sambandha with dharma and adharma. Because otherwise, this whole law of karma, and therefore karma kanda will have no basis at all. The law of karma has a basis that karma phala is always in keeping with karma, and that the one who performs the karma is the one who is accountable for experiencing the outcome of the karma. This is the basic law of karma. Now, this is possible only when the karma phala recognizes who the karta is. So in spite of there being countless performance of actions and countless results of action over beginningless time and place, still that karma phala at a given time, given place, under given conditions will connect itself only to a particular performer of karma. This is all assumed. Then only you can say that the one who performs karma is accountable for the outcome of the result, outcome of the karma. So this presupposes sambandha, yoga or sambandha of karma and karma phala with Atma. Now, logically speaking, there is no way for us to establish, we don't have any experience, we don't have even logic that, we don't have any experience or the capacity to establish the connection of karma phala with Atma. This we simply accept from the scriptures. That's all. Punyo vai punyena karmana bhavati papah papena. The punyena karmana punyo bhavati. One performs punya karma, one becomes punya, virtuous. Papah papena performs vicious actions, becomes vicious, meaning that he is the recipient of the result of his karma, dharma and adharma. So that statement and maybe similar statements of the Vedas are the basis for the Mimamsakas to establish connection of the karma with Atma. Adrishta. Otherwise, not our experience. Nobody has seen or experienced that, hey, this fellow performed that karma at that time, so he is experiencing this result. Nobody can say that. Because that will require one to be sarvajna, which nobody is. And still they accept. The whole of life in India is based on this. And most of the other people also, whether they accept law of karma or not. Everybody accepts that by performing virtuous actions, there is certainly stand to gain in some way or the other. They may not accept next birth, etc., but they do accept that punya karma will assure you a place in paradise, papa karma will throw you into hell. So in that sense, the karma phala and the Atma are connected everywhere. Otherwise there is no religious life, no religious life at all. Unless a religious person has some benefit, as compared to a vicious person, what is the incentive to be a religious person? Because you have to go out of your way to perform religious actions and take trouble to perform them also. If there is no incentive, nobody would do that. So all the religious cultures accept that. They may not be as intelligent as the Veda is, in the sense that they may not be able to put it as effectively as the Vedas do. So here Manusmriti can tell you, if you perform this karma in this lifetime, then in seventh birth, what will the result are also stated in the Smriti Granthas, in Puranas, etc. All I am saying is that there is a connection of karma phala with the karta, with Atma, is the basis of the whole karma kanda. And for that basis, we have no way of determining, we are simply dependent upon the statement of the Vedas themselves. So just as that connection of the karma phala with Atma is accepted by you, the Mimamsakas, the karma kandas, simply on the basis of the statement of the Veda. Like punya vai punyena karmana bhavati. Similarly also that Atma is Brahma. They say we don't have experience. It's not experience that establishes that. It is the pramanam that establishes. Even though we do not have experience that I am the recipient of this result or because of karma I perform at that. It is nobody's experience. It is established by pramanam, by Veda. So you may not have experienced that I am Brahma. Experience doesn't have to become the basis of arriving at conclusions about life. Because experience is on the part of an individual who is limited in every way. And even if you have experience, to understand that experience and derive logical conclusions from that experience requires omniscience, no less than that, which nobody is. So, just as you cannot present experience as a basis of establishing performance of dharma, dharma, karma, so also experience need not be demanded as a reason for accepting Atma as Brahma, because that's what the Upanishad says. Brahma Veda, Brahmaya Bhavati. Very clearly says the knower of Brahma becomes Brahma. Not only that, Tameva viditva atimrutyameti nanyah pantha vidyate ayanaya. Tameva atmanam viditva mrutyumatyeti. One can cross the death, transcend the death, become liberated from death, become immortal, become mukta, liberated. Tameva viditva, only by knowing the Atman, by knowing tam vidvatva eva, by knowing Atma alone, that is not karma. Nanyah pantha, even though evakara is there, which excludes other than jnanam, still Upanishad says, Nanyah pantha vidyate ayanaya. Ayanaya, for moksha, there is no other pantha. Karma is not the means of moksha. So why should that statement not become the basis for you to accept that Atma is Brahman? And that jnanam is the means of moksha, very clearly stated, that karma is not. So that way karma is dismissed as a sadhanam for moksha, not dismissed in any other way. And also, by saying that Brahma Veda Brahmaya Bhavati, the duality also is dismissed. Therefore, Veda Karmanoho Ninditayoho, that statement dismisses Veda, the duality or division between Atma and Brahma, and karma as a means of moksha. Therefore, if your basis of conclusions is Shastra, then this should be the basis. Shastranusarebihi yatha shastramartha pratipadavya. If you follow Shastra, then you should follow it all the way. Not just take one statement and then say this is Shastra. Shastra is statements not about karma or about jnana also. Therefore, take the Shastra overall, and this is the conclusion you arrive at. But Shastra Atmano Dharmadara Yoga Manantara Viruddha Bhavat, that the one who performs virtuous karma gets rewarded by happiness. One who performs vicious karma gets punished, if you want to say, whatever, by painful experience. So, there is nothing to contradict this statement. Now it's another way. Even if you do not arrive at this law of karma or connection of karma with karmaphala by your experience or reasoning, that part you accept only based on Shruti. But something becomes pramanam when what it reveals is not contradicted by any other pramanam. So eyes can be called a pramanam for revealing the color, say orange of this cloth, provided that this is orange is not contradicted by any other pramanam. By other organ of perception, by inference, by any other pramanam, that's not contradicted. So therefore not being contradicted also becomes a basis of accepting something as pramanam. So we say that, they say, that this connection punya papa, which is the basis of the whole karma kanda, by the way. Basis of whole karma kanda is that Atma becomes connected with the result of the action. Then only they can threaten you also that you'll go to heaven. They can tempt you, you can go to heaven, you can go to hell, you can threaten you. You go to hell, heaven if you do this. All of this is possible provided this connection of the Atma with karmaphala is accepted. For that, Shruti alone is pramanam. But they say that there is pramanam for another reason also, that this is not contradicted by anything else. There is no experience or no other perception, etc., means of knowledge, which contradicts this. Therefore, it stands as pramanam. Na tasa atmana brahmatvam, but then Atma is Brahma, that is what Upanishad said, alright. Aham brahmasmi, brahma veda brahmeva bhavati. But that is contradicted. So whether that should be accepted as pramana or not, the other test is that what the pramanam reveals should not be contradicted by other pramanam, our experience. If it does contradict, then those statements have to be interpreted differently. That's the whole idea. Statement is pramanam, all right. But the meaning that you are deriving from the statement has to stand. The test of not being contradicted by any other pramanam also. So Brahma Veda Brahmeva Bhavati, which reveals the identity of Atma and Brahma. However, so that is your interpretation of that statement. They will interpret it differently, this upasana statement, etc. There are other interpretations available. Aham Brahmasmi, the Vedantin wants to interpret that in a primary sense. They say, no, they say Aham Brahmasmi, we meditate upon Aham as Brahma. So even though that statement is pramanam, and that seems to say the oneness of Atma and Brahma, still whether that oneness is what you are claiming to be or something else. You are claiming that oneness to be absolute in a primary sense, but that is posed by our experience that I am not Brahma. I am a karta, bhokta, this is my immediate experience. So my experience called pratyaksha contradicts what the conclusion you are deriving, not what the Veda says. But the conclusion that you are deriving from what the Veda says is contradicted by my experience of kartatva, bhoktatva. Therefore, those statements should not be interpreted to reveal non-duality, they should rather be interpreted to reveal something else. Therefore, Bheda Bhedo eva adaraniyo. Therefore, our contention or our position, rather, Bheda Bhedo, that Bheda also is right. Dvasuparna Sayuja Sakhaya. That Bheda also is alright. Brahma Veda, Brahmaya Bhavati, Abheda also is alright. Because there are both the kinds of statements in the Vedas, and that's our experience also. So now we accepted Pramanya. But they say when Shabda or Vakya is Pramana, when we understand correctly the Tatparya of that Vakya. So now the question is, what is the Tatparya of that Vakya, Pramana Vakya or Mahavakya? They say that if you interpret that statement in keeping with our experience, then Bheda Bhedo Adaraniyo. Bheda is our experience. Abheda also will achieve because that's what they say. Therefore, the Tatparya of the Mahavakya is not just Abheda, is in Bheda Bheda. See, this is how the Pramana Vichara is done. Then you have to say, well, alright, let's look at other aspects, other statements of Upanishad. Ya maharadhanadhyaha taha vasana swapnadarshibhi anubhuyanteva. That yes, you are right, that you are experiencing kartrutva, bhoktrutva of the Atma. And you present that experience as contradicting this conclusion that Atma is Brahma, because Atma is Karta, Bhokta is our experience. So how can you say that Atma is Brahma? How can that interpretation be right? So let us examine the experience. That what you are experiencing, is it what you are experiencing or is it a conclusion from that experience? Ya maharadhanadhyaha taha vasanaha swapnadarshibhi anubhuyanteva. So now we refer to passages from the Upanishad, we describe the state of dream. Where it says that the fabric of the mind gets dyed or colored with different colors, depending upon the nature of experience. And so Upanishad describes just as a fabric which is dyed in turmeric becomes yellow. And similarly, there are different colors, dyed in red color, etc. And the fabric assumes that color. So also the mind assumes different colors based on the experiences in the waking state. The mind gets influenced by the result of the experience of the waking state. So therefore, this subtle state of the experience called vasana is what is imprinted in the mind. Basically, every experience leaves a samskar imprint in the mind. Many of those imprints are very, they fade away, right? But there are some of them are, deep imprints. So they color the mind. So then, Upanishad says, what are you experiencing in dream? In dream, you are experiencing your own mind. There is no object in the dream that is accepted. So whatever you are experiencing in dream is your own mind, which is colored by the impressions of the experiences in the waking state. Meaning in the dream you don't experience objects, you experience only the mind which is colored by the experiences which comes out as object. Mind itself assumes a form of various objects, like elephants and mountains and whatever. So just because you experience something, it doesn't mean it is really there. It can be an abhas also. Meaning that what we are experiencing in dream are not the padartha, the abhasa, the appearances of objects projected by the mind. So this is established in dream. How about waking? Waking is not different from dream. The Vedantin will say this. The understanding of the dream experience is extended to the waking, because in waking state also the setup is very similar. Here also you think that you are experiencing the objects, but in the waking also you are only experiencing your mind. The mind along with sense organs contacts the objects and then takes the form of the objects, ghatakara, patakara. So you are not experiencing ghata, you are experiencing ghatakara vritti. So in the waking state also, what you are experiencing are not objects but the different states of mind. Like in dream. In dream, the real objects are not there, only abhasa is there. So waking also is similar in reality. Which means that in waking also, what you are experiencing is abhasa and not an object as such. Therefore, kartrutva, bhoktrutva, that you think you are experiencing in waking state, that Atma is karta bhokta. There is no real thing, it is just an abhasa, it is only a state of mind, and there is no entity corresponding to that concept. You think experiencing the pot, we say you are experiencing only clay. So we think that we are experiencing objects. No, you are experiencing only the impressions or the mind which has taken the form. That is right, wrong or indifferent. Now then it can be pramana, it can be pramana, brahma, whatever. Meaning that the experience of the mind, experience in the waking state of kartrutva, bhoktrutva cannot be presented as pramanam to contradict what the Upanishad says, because you are not experiencing real kartrutva, bhoktrutva. You are experiencing mind that assumes those forms, you are abhasa. In the waking state also, you are not experiencing the real entity. Therefore, that experience of abhasa cannot be presented as a valid conclusion to contradict the conclusion that we have from the Mahavakya. Therefore, tat anya kevalo dushi, and nothing about the dream. That in dream, the dreamer, the dreamt, the dreaming, the means of dreaming, the perceiver, the perceived, perception, and means of perception in the dream are all nothing but mind alone has become all of this. That is very clear. So dream experience states that Atma, that is the illuminator of mind, is different from the mind. And the perceiver, perceived, perception, means of perception, they are all nothing but mind in the dream. Therefore, Atma is different from perceiver, perceived, perception, everything. Tata anya kevalo drushihi. Therefore, the self is nothing but drushihi, consciousness. Atmana swapnavasthayam drishya vilakshanattvena pratitim eva drishtantena spashtayati. Atmana pratitim, the Atma is seen or known Drushya vilakshanattvena pratitihi. That Atma is recognized or seen as distinct from Drishya. Drashta is distinct from Drishya. Here, the Drashta, Drishya, Darshanam and the Pramanam, all of these are the states of mind in dream. Therefore, all of them fall in the category of Drishya because they are all mind. And Atma that illumines them is distinct from them. Drishya vilakshanattvena. Drashta is Drishya vilakshana. The perceiver or illuminator, I should say, is distinct from what is illumined. Drishtantena spashtayati. So, it is not clarified. This statement was made in a dream. It is very clear that Atma is different from the Drashta, Drishya. But how it is was not clear. Yes, the Drashta, Drishya, Darshanam, all of these are nothing but the mind taking all those forms. And therefore Atma is different from all of them. He is now spashtayati clarified with the help of Drashta and the help of an illustration. So verse 11 says, Koshadiva vinishkrishtaha karya karana varjitaha yatha sirdrishyate swapne tadvad bodha swayam prabha. Koshadiva vinishkrishtaha yatha asihi drishyate. Yatha just as asihi, sword. Kosha vinishkrishtaha, when is brought out from the kosha, the scabbard. You take out the sword from the scabbard, then you see it clearly. So how a sword is seen clearly as distinct from the scabbard or kosha. So that is very clear. You can take it out. Similarly also, Tadvat in a manner similar to that, Swapne, Bodha, Karyakarana Varjita in Swapna. What is Swapna? That kosha, what is a kosha? Now, the example of kosha is given. That Atma is as though covered by a scabbard. In dream, made up of Karya and Karana. Dream world is made up of Karya and Karana. And Atma is as though experienced along with that. But if you take out the Atma from that kosha of Karya Karana, like you take out this sword from the scabbard, then Atma is clearly seen. Meaning Atma can be taken out from that kosha in the dream. So the word kosha is used for koshavat achadakatvad, because it as though covers. Not that karya karana, which is what the world is. Just as waking world is made up of karya karana, cause and effect, effect and cause, so dream world is karya karana. And therefore, just as you see a scabbard, quite distinct from, a sword distinct from a scabbard, so you can see Atma distinct from all of this. So koshad iva. Iva shabda yatha shabda. The koshad is like a kosha, just as a kosha. Iva can be as though, no, but like. Iva shabda has this different meanings. Ko asihi. eva iti sambandha. So eva shabda yatha asihi. This, we have to assume that asi is the next line. Yatha asihi. Then when evakara is added there. So yatha shabda yathavat, then there is a yatha shabda, yatha asihi drishyate. Yatha, when the sword is removed from the scabbard, yatha, how the sword is seen as it is, yathavat drishyate. Sword is seen also even when it is in scabbard, but not as it is. How, when the sword is removed from the scabbard, it is seen as it is. So yatha, as it is seen, yathavat, because as it is seen as it is. So yatha asihi khadgah koshat pasakritah swarupena drishyate. A simple thing. Just as the sword is removed from the scabbard, is seen as it is, because what was covering, that covering is gone, so now the sword is seen as it is. Just a date, very simple example. Tadvat, like that, evam, in that manner, bodha karya karana varjitah drishyate yathavat drishyate. So bodha also. Now again, bodha means the knower. So you have to use some word for Atma. So here the one who knows the dream world, who knows the perceiver, perceived, perception, one who knows all of that, means one who illumines here. Similarly, the one who illumines the dream world consisting of the subject and object and interaction, or the perceiver, perceived, perception, means of perception. Karya karana varjitah. Just as a sword is varjitah, devoid of the kosha, scabbard, so also Atma is completely devoid of the kosha of karya karana. How karya karana akara manasa lingat prasak bhuta swapne yathavat drishyate. So dream in fact is a very good experience to realize the nature of Atma. Because it is known that whatever is perceived in dream is mithya, or that there is no illuminator there other than Atma. The dream world is shining, is known, is experienced without any conventional luminary in the dream. And therefore, the one that illumines the dream world is Atma. And the illuminator can be seen by recognizing the illumined as illumined. You can clearly see the illuminator as distinct from that. So in the dream experience, it is possible to recognize Atma as purely illuminator, as shining, distinct from what is illumined. Karya karanakara manasa lingat. So fifth case, manasa, from the mind which has taken the karya karana akara, the form of karya and karana, that is the dream world. Lingat, which is nothing but this subtle body. What the experiencing dream is subtle body, call it mind or subtle body. It's basically linga or mind. Because the prana and in subtle body also, sense organs, prana, they are not there in the dream. Basically, mind of course is a predominant member of the subtle body. And what experience in dream is only part of the subtle body. But still you can't call it subtle body. Pruthak bhuda swapne yathavat drishyate. When you contemplate or deliberate upon swapna, then you realize that Atma shines in its own light, distinct from this dream world. Drishyate, Atma is seen. Drishyate yukte, when you say, hey, Atma is seen. Vishaya drishyatva, vishayavad drishyatvad mithyatvam. You mean you see Atma in the dream as distinct from Karya Karana? If it is seen, then Atma becomes also object of seeing. Drishyavat. So, drishyatvad mithyatvam. Yad drishyam tan mithya, because whatever is seen, perceived, objectified is achetanam, is unconscious, meaning dependent upon the consciousness for it to be and to shine, so it is mithya. If similarly Atma is seen in the dream state, then Atma also falls in the category of drishya or mithya. So he says, no. We say drishyate means recognize swayam prabha. Drishya means what is perceived, objectified, and that what is objectified always depends upon an illuminator to illumine that. Like ghata, pata, all these objects, they are called objects, they are called drishya, because they cannot reveal themselves on their own. They can reveal their presence only when illuminated by the light of consciousness, coming through mind and sense organs. So therefore, drishya is paraprakashyam, illumined by something else. Therefore it's jadam, unconscious. That's the definition of mithya, which does not enjoy independent existence, does not shine independently, is called mithya. But no. So Atma is seen all right, but not seen as a ghatapana. Atmavara drashtavya. So sometimes in order to communicate how Atma has to be clearly known, without any doubt, this word dushyate is used, Atma or drashtavya, must be seen, hey Maitreyi. But then it is not to be seen like ghatapata, otherwise it becomes mithya. So it is clarified, swayam prabha, it is self-shining. What is self-shining? Swamahimnaya prathate na vishayata ityartha. That things shine all right, but most of the things shine not because of themselves, not because of their greatness or glory that they shine. They shine because of something else. The moon also shines and bright at night. But na swamahimna. Moon does not shine in its own light or glory. Shines because of something else, sun. Whereas the sun shines in his own light, so shining also can be of different kinds. So world also is shining. Dream world also is shining, like moon is shining. And that Atma is shining like the sun, so it is sun. In the light of sun that the moon is shining. Light of Atma that the dream world is shining. So shining of the Atma is of a nature different from shining of the dream world. So mahimnaya prathate na vishayataya. Atma shines by his own mahima, by his own glory, by his own effulgence. Na vishayataya. Not as an object illuminated by some, by another source of illumination. So there is one explanation of the word Swayam Prabha. Or Tikakara says Yadva. Katham avagamyate swapne karyakarana vyavajita atma iti. Or if a question is asked, Swapne karyakarana vyavajita atma katham avagamyate, that in swapna, the atma is karya karana vivarjita. The atma is distinct from karya karana in the dream. It may be difficult to say that with certainty in the waking, but it can be said with much more certainty in the dream. How? Iti vikshayam atrayam purusha swayam jyotihi. So Upanishad itself has analyzed or subjected the dream state to a deliberation of determining the nature of dream. And the Upanishad came to conclusion, Atrayam Purusha Swayam Jyotihi. Atra, in the dream, this Purusha, the Paramatma, the self is Swayam Jyotihi, self-shining. Iti Shruti Samarthyahat. So, based on the statement of Shruti, so Samarthyam is so Anyatha Anupatti is, I mean, Shruti would not have said this unless Atma was Swayam Prabha. Therefore, Atrayam Purusha Swayamiti Shruti Samarthyat. So based on that statement of Shruti, we can say that the Atma is distinct from the Karya Karana. This is called Arthapatti. So Samarthya means Arthapatti. Anyatha Anupattihi. Had Atma not been self-effulgent, Shruti would not have said this, that Atrayam Purusha Swayam Jyoti. The fact that Shruti said means Atma is Swayam Prabha. So based on that statement, we say that Atma is no, otherwise Shruti would not have said it. So Swayam Prabha, that Atma is self-effulgent, self-shining. Swayam Prakasha. Iti Shrutya Nirnitaha. So either we can arrive at the Atma as Swayam Prabha by our own analysis, or by the conclusion that the Shruti has said in her own word that Atma is Swayam Prabha in the dream state. Means it is Swayam Prabha. And so when you give example of the sword in the scabbard and separating, somebody thinks that Atma is separated from Anatma in that. So that is not intention there of the example. The example of the sword in the scabbard is to be taken only in the aspect relevant to this. Not all the aspects of the example will be physically separate things. So, Tikakarat Upadesh Pusak Rupena Avasamatra Asidushtanta. Asidushtanta, the illustration of Asi of the sword is Upadesh Pusak Sarupena Avasamatra. How the sword shines in its own Swarupa when separated from scabbard. That's all. Not that Atma is to be separated in that sense. So in those aspects, that illustration is not to be applied. Illustration of the sword is to be applied in this aspect of how the sword shines in its own Swarupa when separated from the kosha, the scabbard. That's all. Not that a physical separation of Atma from Anatma has to take place. Not in that sense. Because all sorts of objections are raised when you make a statement, you made it with this intention, but it can be interpreted differently, and all sorts of things happen in the world. So here also it can happen. Atmana kartruttvadi pratibhasasya swapna pratibhasvan mithyatvat Shuddha eva atma brahmavedi shastrat avirodhena pratyetam shakyatvat. Now, what was done in the last verses was that it was established that Atma is not Karta, Kartrutva, Bhoktrutva is not the reality of Atma. It is Pratibhasa, mere Atma appears as the Karta Bhokta, not that it is Karta Bhokta. And for Pratibhasa, Swapna Pratibhasavat, Swapna was presented as an example as to how whatever we think we are experiencing in dream is Pratibhasa and not a real object. Similarly also the Kartrutva, Bhoktrutva that we think we are experiencing in Atma is Pratibhasa. So you are basing your conclusion of Veda Bheda Vada by saying that we are experiencing Atma as Karta Bhokta. So that experience also should be accounted for, because if you say Atma is Brahma, then you can't explain the experience of Karta Bhokta. The account both the experiences, Veda Bheda Vada. Says this is not an experience. You are not experiencing Kartrutva, you are experiencing Kartrutva Pratibhasa. Meaning that so-called experience cannot be taken as the basis to conclude that Atma is Karta Bhokta. So Swapna was the example. From Swapna we arrived at the waking also, then waking the Kartrutva, Bhoktrutva, the Atma that we think we are experiencing is the Pratibhasa, appearance of Atma and not the reality of Atma. Then he says, you don't even have to do that. Shuddheva Atma Shastrat, Shastra itself says. So here we resorted to dream, from that we came to waking, and then we came to this conclusion. Says, you don't even have to do that. Shastra clearly says how Atma is different from the Karyakarana Sanghata. Shuddheva Atma Brahmaiva iti. That Atma is Brahma. Iti Shastrat Avirodheneva. Elsewhere statement is made that you are Brahma. But here is an Upanishad, Ajatasatru Brahmana, where it is demonstrated how Atma is Brahma. Shastrat Avirodheneva Pratyetam Shakyatvat. The Atma is Brahma. Pratyetam Shakyatvat. It is possible to arrive at this understanding by Shastrat without any reasoning to be applied from dream, waking, etc. that we did. Here, Shastra in its own words shows how Atma is different from Karyakarana Sanghata. Therefore, Shastra itself shows how Atma is Karyakarana Bhinna, different from Karyakarana Sanghata. And therefore, you don't have to imagine Bheda. That Bheda also is there, Bheda also is. No, Shastra clearly says Bheda alone is what is arrived at by Shastra. That Atma is different from the Karyakarana Sanghata. So, a Bheda of that, you don't have to imagine. The Bheda Veda Kalpanaya Mana Khedaniyam. So, you have to go out of your way and strain your mind to establish the view of Bheda Veda. You don't have to strain your mind. When Upanishad clearly says that Atma is Bhinna, why do you have to strain your mind to say Bhinna also, Abhinna also? You don't have to. This is Siddhyarthe Sopakramam Vakyam Pramanamaha. that Atma is identical to Brahman is what is established in this verse is Siddhyartha. Sobhakram Vakyam Pramanamaha. To validate that conclusion or validate this conclusion we arrived at from analysis of Shastra. The Vakya Pramanam, the Vakya is stated which says that Atma is different from Brahman. Sobhakramam begins with Upakrama. Because that Upakrama or introduction was necessary to understand that Vakya. In this Ajatasthur Brahman, if you just took that Vakya, then you may not be able to get the thing. So context is also necessary. So along with context, that Vakya is stated from the Ajatasthur Brahmana, which clearly states how Atma is different from Karikana Sanghata and Atma is one with Brahman. So then, 12th verse says, Apeshat pratibuddhasya nyasya svabhavikam padam uktam netyadi vakyena kalipitasyapanitruna. Apeshat pratibuddhasya. A sleeping man is woken up by shaking his body. Dandolu, shaking up. Because so fast asleep, that just by calling his name, this, that, there is no way to wake him up. The only way the fellow could be woken up is by shaking his body with the hands. Pratibuddhasya. So there the illustration is of a man who was fast asleep and was woken up by shaking his body with the hands. That was the experiment or illustration presented before Gargya to enable him to see that Atma is consciousness. That Atma is different from Karya Karana Sanghata was established just by that experiment. Brilliant. Knyasya svabhavikam padamuktam. So by that, Knyasya, Knya means a knower or the consciousness. So no svabhavikam padam. What is svabhavikam padam? What is the inherent nature of this knower or the individual, conscious being? What is the inherent nature of this conscious being, the fellow who was sleeping, who was established by waking him up, by shaking his body? And na ityadi vakyena kalpitasya apanetruna. Further, na ityadi vakyena neti neti ityadi vakyena kalpitasya apanetruna vakyena. Third case again. Apanetruna, apanetru, apanetruna. That is the Visheshana adjective vakyena. Apanetruna vakyena. Vakya is a statement which does apanayanam, which removes. What? Kalpitasya. So that vakya neti neti, it removes or negates kalpitam, what is projected. Because svabhavikam padam, since the gnya or the conscious being usually appears with the kalpitam, because he appears with something that is projected normally, and Gnya or the conscious being or the Atma is generally experienced along with the Kalpita, along with the projection, Adhyasa, superimposition. then only Atma can become the object of experience. Only when Atma puts on a costume, then only can become the experience, can be experienced as even I, Aham. So Atma is experienced all right. What is Swabhavikam Padam? So you conclude that here is a beggar. And therefore, apanayanam is required by negating the costume of the beggar. The person who knows that actor makes you see that, hey, here is an actor by negating the kalpita, the beggar which is projected upon the actor, that beggar is negated to enable this person to see the inherent nature of, because on the stage the actor never comes as he is. Although then in the green room he will be, but on the stage. So if you want to make him, help this fellow recognize who that person is, you can say this is actor A, but that this is an actor by negating the costume B, which is kalpitam. It can be negated because it is not inherent nature of A. Beggar is not the inherent nature of actor, therefore it can be negated. Simply negating things don't happen. You can only negate what is negatable. So beggar is negatable, costume is negatable, leaving what is real. Here also by negating what is kalpitam about Atma, you make him understand what is the truth. Swabhavikam Padam, the inherent nature of Atma. The Gargya is made to see the inherent nature of Atma by the experiment of waking up a sleeping person and by negating what is projected or kalpitam. So Shruti in her own words says this. The Atma is Brahma, and Atma is distinct from Karyakana Sanghata. By negating that, and Atma is Brahma, this is said by Shruti in her own words. Don't apply reasoning and stuff like that, which we did earlier. But you can directly, so Shruti directly says that, and for that Brahmana is quoted. We'll continue. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamada Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeri Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.